Welcome to the Accounting Profits and Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Louis Prosperi. My guest today is a legal accounting expert, a niche advocate, and an expert in helping law firms streamline their finances and, of course, maximize their profitability. Please welcome to the show, Lynda Artesani. Lynda, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Lynda, what's really interesting is when I've done some research on you, I was quite amazed because most accounting firms or accountants or CPAs or CAs, whatever you want to call them, they don't niche. They say they niche, but they don't. They do everything. And what I loved about you is you're literally a niche. You really focus on law firms and you become an expert on law firms. I wonder if that was the original intent, or did you start off like every typical accountant doing all the work? Did you graduate to this level, or please explain it to us?
I think I'll steal your term, graduate. But yeah, I started out as a generalist millions of years ago. And I did that work for a long time. But then I went to an Intuit Connect in 2016. And that was their big play. Like, everybody should be doing this as technology moves forward. You should really think about it. And I got hooked because they said you could make more money doing the exact same thing. And I had been doing this for a while, and I started to shift my practice to working with, I tried out different niches, tried to figure like three that I liked. And then it narrowed, it kind of found me. And I just hung on with it, and I love it. I love I just like working with professionals like that. And it was really, it just fit my personality. For me and my practice, it just became one of the best things. I always say it's the best decision I ever made is switching to a niche.
Fantastic. Why did you pick law firms? Because lawyers don't sound to be like the niche market that it's. I'm not saying that lawyers aren't great people. I'm just saying that lawyers have a specific way of, and I'm just wondering why lawyers, not let's say hairdressers or construction workers, or why lawyers? Like, how did you get to that
it's funny. One of my favorite lines when I get in an elevator, if we're at a conference and people aren't talking, and they'll say, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm here for a conference." "What are you here for?" "An accounting conference." And it's like, everybody's like, "Ugh, that sounds awful." And then I go,
"Right.
My practice works only with attorneys." And they're like, "Oh my God, really?" And I get that kind of a reaction to it. But it's funny that, you think of that. Attorneys are people. All different people. So just like before, the same thing, you get good clients or bad clients as you go along. But most of the times, my experience with them has been wonderful. They're very invested in their business.
Right.
So we have higher level conversations. Not that I didn't with the other clients, but they have like a plan, and they know what they want for growth. And we work together in a different way than I would like with the pool service guy that I worked before, that just has heads down working in the pool service. And if it comes, growth comes, and they get a lot of clients, it's kind of by accident. But with the attorneys, they'll focus on, we'll work on what practice area is working the best if they're multi-practice area, and what is going to be their best move to a business trajectory that's going to really be fruitful in the end and really start to bring them in money. And if they're making $1 million this year, how do they get to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million? And those are the things that that kind of work for me is challenging but fun, and something I never got to do before when I was just doing write-up bookkeeping, head down, stuff that's really been taken over now by like bank feed rules and things like that. We used to type in all the numbers, and HubDoc came along and you got to put the bills in. All that's been taken away by technology advances. Now, you want to be able to do something that's going to bring you to a next level. And I didn't know that I'd be this excited about it when I decided to make the decision to niche. That was like a perk that I didn't see coming down the road.
So what's interesting about niche in accounting, it's like, for example, the old traditional saying is, well, bookkeeping is bookkeeping. It's no different between whether you do one or the other, but there is a big difference. Can you explain to me how, when you decided to specialize in law firms, how that made you a better accountant, how that made you a better provider of services? Because I think when you actually narrow, you actually become better rather than, can you explain that a little bit, and how that you actually became a better accountant?
You do, because now I can pull up at any given time. I'm working in all these different files. A lot of
Right.
them use the same vendors, or, I see a strategy that works over something else that I can now work with another client on. I see, like I said, they're all smart people. So I can see
Yeah.
some of the things that they're working towards that might fit what might work for one will work for another. And the fact that I have eyes on, like, I wish I had a giant dashboard, which is coming in the future now with like Enterprise Suite. I wish I had a dashboard that I could look at all my clients and see where they are and how they're profitable and where they're, and compare them. Obviously you can do it, but it'd be great to have one place that it would just pop up for you, which I can see that coming in the future, that you're going to actually be able to, as the accountant, you got your accountant page with all your clients, you're going to be able to pull up some kind of a dashboard someday. I can just visualize it. That'll
And
come
I
down
think
the
you're,
road,
yeah, I
and then
think
you'll be
you're,
able to see it and see it
yeah,
at a high, so you're not going into each one, but still the conversations that I have with clients when we meet with them and talk to them,
yes,
I learn a lot about their industry just by the conversations, as well as studying. I mean, when you first start out changing to a new industry, you have to really dig down deep into it. So you really need to kind of love what you're working with. I like
right,
the challenge of it with, this is an industry that has a challenge. I would suggest if anybody wants to do niching, pick one that has the challenge. Like we have the trust accounting, we have the advanced client costs. Those are the things that are more challenging than a regular small business. I actually considered just working with startups, and
right,
that's going to be my niche. I thought that'd be so exciting. And then
yes,
somewhere along the line, I'm like, you keep doing these startups, and you're like, oh, I'll do it for free because I know you don't have any
uh,
cash to start. And I was like, that's probably not a good business model for me. And
fair
and
enough.
attorneys just kind of made their way to the top.
So let me ask you about profitability compared to being, let's call it a generalist, like you originally called it,
Hmm.
and now going into specializing in law firms. Has that changed your ability to charge premium prices? Are the lawyers willing to pay you more because you're an expert in their field, or do they think of you? Well, you're no different than the guy who does all everybody else's books. Can you go into that a little bit? Like let professionals know that it might be a little scary at first, but there's a the carrot at the end of the trail, more or less.
I mean, just the conversations we have in the beginning, and somebody will come to us, and a lot of times they come to us, they've had a bad bookkeeping experience,
Right.
and they've got that compliance piece of the trust having to be balanced in a three-way bank reconciliation. Sometimes when I'm in a conversation with a new client, I have a business partner, Sarah, and Sarah and I work together in the conference, in the call,
Right.
and we will bring up, this is what we do, and this is the service we provide, and we'll mention the three-way bank reconciliation. And oddly, even though it's a compliance piece, a lot of them don't know that it exists or understand what that is. They think their books are reconciled, that they're fine, and then we can just pull up their balance sheet and collapse up their trust account and look at the bank account balance. And 99.9% of the time, it doesn't match. And there's something wrong. Something's been booked improperly. And we'll just start talking to them. And we'll start talking about what kind of a compensation model do you have? Are you using Eat What You Kill or modification of that? They
Right.
know just from those conversations, like, oh, this person really knows what they're talking about. So they also know, on top of that, we've got Sarah and I are kind of known as the legal ladies. So they come to us, they've heard that rumor, because we're pretty much all over the place between having the accountants law lab where we teach other bookkeepers what we do. We have a podcast. So we have the accountants law pod where we talk about this stuff. So we're very much out there and we're known in the industry. And I think between those things, people who've had a bad experience, attorneys are willing to pay more to not
Yes.
have to worry about it anymore. And I love to tell them, I'm going to help you sleep at night, because they worry about this because their license can be on the line if they've got bad record keeping. If they get a random audit, it doesn't have to be an audit because somebody complained. It can just be a random one. And they give you like 2 weeks to produce the records. And if your records aren't set up properly, you don't have the
You
records in
get
two
dinged.
weeks. They're not
Yeah.
very, open about, oh, we'll give you another month. They don't do that. So that's
Right.
another part of how we can help, because we've been through multiple audits with different clients, and we know how to handle all of that, which also helps too.
Well, that's interesting how you said that. You're absolutely right. Lawyers, even though that they're there to help defend you or help
Hmm.
you when you're in a jam, they themselves are risk averse. They're not.
Yeah.
They don't like taking risks when it comes to their stuff. They want to make sure that they're everything's in order. And I'm glad you mentioned the 3 level bank reconciliation because that's not normal. It's very specific to trust accounts,
Yes.
real estate lawyers, particularly, or any lawyer who has retainers and trust funds that they have to redistribute. Could you explain that a little more? Because I think
Yeah.
that's very unique to that industry.
It really is. So with the three pieces, so it's a three-way bank reconciliation. And so
Yes,
you reconcile the books, you got the bank statement, the bank balance, that's also the way that they go by the balance. It's plus or minus any transactions in transit. So anything that processed
yes,
at the end of the month but didn't clear. So that's the one piece. The
yeah,
second piece is your QuickBooks balance. So your balance in QuickBooks with your sub liabilities, you roll that up and you get that total. That has to equal that adjusted bank balance. And also, if you're using Clio or Lien Law, the legal tech, there's also a list in there, and that also has to match. So all of
right,
those pieces have to have the same balance. Sarah and I developed with our team, primarily we've got quite a few people on our team that really helped facilitate this. So with LiveFlow, we've developed a process that anybody can use it. You can work with LiveFlow and hook up the software to QuickBooks and to the external piece, whether it's Clio or Lien Law, pull all those numbers in and it will calculate across anything that's not in balance or has a problem, didn't equal across. We'll put a pink line across so you know those are the ones you have to
right,
take care of. And it really, for us, because we work mostly with mid-market clients, bigger clients, lots of trust accounts, it's a more efficient way to get that three-way bank reconciliation accomplished. And it's super professional, and we built it with the client in mind. So it's easy for them to look at and understand, like if something,
right,
some deposit for trust came in and it went into the wrong bank account, somebody just brought it to the bank and put it in the wrong bank, it's going to flag that you need to now move that money over because it's in the wrong bank account to correct the problem in the trust account. And little things like that happen on a daily basis. The bank processes something and didn't put the right amount and it's off by 5 cents. You have to handle those ins and outs of the funds, and those little things are flagged really quickly and easily
good,
and
yeah,
transparently. So it's a really great tool that we developed, because you have to do it outside of the platforms because they're not all in one. So you have to have that ability to move those and separate those.
yeah. Because I have never. I only did a law firm way back in my early childhood years, and I never touched it again because of how I didn't like that. But the trust accounts is probably one of their scariest components for lawyers if their trust accounts aren't properly documented and the audit trails on those. They personally can get a lot of trouble, and I agree with you. That's a critical concept. You also mentioned? It sounds like with regards to law firms, there's also specific programs that are designed for law firms, right? It's
Yes.
not you just can't pick one off the shelf and say, "I'll just use this for a lawyer's firm." Can you go through that a bit because it's not generic? Is that correct?
No, it's not generic. And the funny thing with that is that there's so many different types of products out there. Can go even go right down to this certain one is good for this particular practice area.
Right,
But like we not only niche and we have a set workflow, we only use a set couple of products. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm on Practice Panther, will you work with me?" My answer
right,
back is, "I'll work with you to get you off of that into Clio or Lien Law, but we do not work in that product. So if you need help, we've got the Law Lab. We can give you somebody who loves working in that product." But we try to stick to, we've got a good sized team now, and we try to stick to the two. Clio's like the number one software for lawyers, and we try to stick to the big players that have the ability and they work the best with QuickBooks, that they have
right,
the ability to be able to take care of the legal side of it. That's where the lawyers sit and do all their work inside those programs. They stay out of QuickBooks, so you can't
right.
ask for a better scenario from our perspective. As you're keeping them out of QuickBooks for the most part, they don't even touch it. They don't want to touch it.
No,
That's the
true.
other perk of working with them. Besides the fact that they're very verbal, so when
Yeah,
you throw numbers at them, you better have some pictures along with that. You better have some graphs and charts, because if you
fair
throw an
enough.
attorney a big pile of numbers, their eyes kind of glaze over, and they really rather have they understand it better. That's not what they do. So like I always tell them, I can't do what you do, and this is just to help them understand their records better and where they're going.
So Linda, you make niching and specializing very attractive. Like I want to do it now, even though I haven't done it in a while. And be honest, the only thing I know about the programs is the only one I've ever heard. And I'm dating myself is PC Law, which I know that's a very old program.
Very.
It's very old. Yes, I get it. So how does a person who's a generalist start moving their practice into a specialty without having to start all over? And what are the things that they could, because you indicated you started with three, is that what you should do? Is or how do you do it? Like what are the
Well,
things you should ask yourself to start the specialization process?
I think for me, I didn't know which one I wanted, and I actually thought it was going to be real estate because that's another more complex one, and
Right,
I own property, so I thought that was logical for me to go down that path. And I was in '97 and up a coaching group with Seth David, and had conversations with him. How do I do this? And he
right,
said, take your data out. We're accountants, take your data out. So I tagged all my clients by industry, made client type by industry, and I tagged them all at my current base before I
right.
switched over. And then I sent it out to Excel, sorted the list, and I made a list of how much I liked working with the client. And that's kind of specific to the person, but still. And I made a list and I rated them 1 to 5, 5 being, I'm going to pick the phone up if they call me, and 1 being like, almost the swipe left or whatever it is when you're on a
Oh
dating
wow, so you went
website.
the reverse. Five was good and one was bad. Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I was
okay,
good. So I just that narrowed the list down to real estate, lawyers, and then the startups, because those are the ones I was excited about.
fair enough.
And Seth is big about whoever you're excited about, and that was one of the things I was excited about. And I had one attorney when I started this journey, one attorney
Right,
client, and he was very new to me, and he was just local. Found me on the ProAdvisor website, and I picked lawyers eventually by kind of narrowing down what I wanted to do. I kind of looked at how do they do with the economy? Oh, they're way better, and then the startups didn't work out. And then worked with the one attorney directly because I didn't really have a big knowledge base. He got a great price from me. And we just sat and worked very quietly together. And he helped me learn the language. He helped me understand trust accounting. I started searching everywhere on the internet to find my way. There wasn't a law lab for me to pick. So I just started working that way. And then I worked with Lean Law, the software, and they sent me some clients. And that's how I ended up meeting Sarah. We had a big client come our way. It was a
right.
conversion. It was a conversion from PC Law to
Oh,
QuickBooks
there you go.
Law.
See, see,
Yeah.
PC Law came
Well, that
into our
was B
conversation.
software. That was B software back in the day. And
Oh, was
so
it? Okay,
so I met Sarah, and we got that job. She got the job and knew I was working with lawyers. And we worked together, and we literally worked our way through. And it helped me learn a lot doing the data migration. And then we got done with the job, and we were kind of sad that we weren't going to work together anymore. And she goes, "You want to do another one?" And that whole business spun off of that. And we just kept doing more and more. And then we had to hire because we couldn't do everything ourselves. And it's just been a fun ride. I mean, having her as a business partner with lawyers has been a dream because she's very tough as nails, and you have to have that disposition with attorneys. They're direct. You have to mirror back that
fair
personality type
enough.
to them,
Yeah,
or they'll eat you alive. So, and they like to question you, so you can't take offense to it. That's their job, to question. So if you have to have the answers, but if you don't have the answers, I think the best thing is to say right to them, "Look, I don't have that answer, but I will get it for you," and
yeah.
give
So
yourself
you're
that.
saying they have a BS meter? They could.
Yes, they do. And yes, yes, they do. And just working with her, I mean, it's been a dream because
Yeah,
we just really love what we do. We love a puzzle. You have to love a puzzle, and you have to be. I'll say to people in the law lab, I'll say, "Do you like working to reconcile, even if it's off by a penny? What do you do?" And they're like, "Oh, a penny? That's really insignificant." Not on the trust account, it's not.
yeah.
You have to be that person that will sit for 3 hours to figure out the penny. You really do. And if you're not that type of person, then the legal industry is not going to be for you. You have to have that detail, want to work in that detail. And that really,
Interesting. So that here you go. If you don't want to reconcile to the penny, don't
yeah, it's
pick
not.
the loss side. That makes sense. But now with customer attraction, you started off with one. How long did it take you to go from one to 100% of your business? Was that like a
So
10-year process, 6 months, and that sort of thing?
So this not exactly 100% even today. So I have legacy
Okay.
clients. They are dwindling. So as they leave me, I've been doing this for 25 years, 26,
Right.
27 years
Wow.
now,
Yeah.
something like that.
Good
So
for you.
as they leave,
Yeah.
they're not replaced. So now if somebody comes to me, and we've had it happen where somebody came and was a veterinarian, and can you do it? It's professional services. I've really heard great things about you. No, but because
Okay.
there's somebody out there that just does that work. Somebody comes to me with inventory. I feel the same way about inventory as probably somebody with inventory feels about law firm work. They don't want to like,
Right.
no, I don't want to do it. Well, I don't want to do anything with inventory. I don't want to do anything with sales tax.
Right.
So those things are kind of not part of our workflow, and it works out really well for us. But I think that if somebody comes to me, and it happens all year long, I get clients that reach out and they saw me on the on QuickBooks Intuit community and like, oh, I have this problem. Can you help me? I'll figure out their industry and then I'll reach out to some of my colleagues who does this, and then we pass it along. And I think that's one of the more rewarding parts of being in a niche. But I didn't do that initially because they have to
Right.
eat to pay my bills.
Yes. That's
So
exactly
know
right.
that
Yes.
you don't have to like cut everything off just because. You should have money in the bank though. If you are going to go down this road, have, 20, 25, 30,000 in the bank because you're going to have to change your marketing. And when you shift your marketing, it took 2 full years before I was exclusively taking just lawyers. It was a two
Okay.
year process. It wasn't 2 seconds. And, or, everybody wants instant, but it wasn't instant for sure.
Okay. So what you're saying is that's a good one. So number one, if you're going to niche, have a bankroll to be able to say no, right? Because that's what I heard from the whole conversation is the ability to say no to everything but lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
For you to be able to do that, one is like you said, you have to have money to be able to say no, and two, resources to change your marketing profile as well as probably investment in software and things that are specific to that industry. So
And
that
for
I think that
marketing, you change your marketing. And when you change the marketing, you have this funnel with all these different industries coming to you. And now you're like, nope, just this one. And they go onto your website and it shows just this one. And
right,
then you might not be getting because all the feelers were out to everything. And now you're really narrowing it down. And it takes a while. I mean, I wrote blog posts and things like that, but it took a long time. It took those 2 full years of me doing that where people now know I'm the person that does the legal stuff. So
right.
it does take a while.
So people have to understand that you can't switch on a dime on this one, and a 2 year process means not just. I guess the way this is what I'm listening to or what I'm hearing, Lynda, is that it's a 2 year process. It could be gradual, but you have to have a linear and very strategic mindset that I'm going here and I have to be willing to take some of the pain, which means that
Yeah.
saying no on a very lucrative non lawyer account, I guess, is right. And
Yeah,
I
and
love the
it's funny because when I was doing it, I made my mind up on that flight back from Intuit Connect, and then
right.
when I started to do it, and I had my money in the bank, I had everything that I knew was going to get me there, and there were moments in time where I was like, oh, I started getting those other leads, and I'm like, oh, I really want the
Yeah.
money. It's really
Yes.
hard to turn it away. And I can remember calling my friend up and going, I think I'm going to change back. And he was like, no, you're
Right.
not. You're doing the right thing. And so find that person. It could be your spouse, it could be a friend, somebody that just is there and says, no, stay the course. You're doing the right thing. Because it would have been really easy. You kind of take the path of less resistance. But if you
Yes.
stick with it, it is really beneficial because now you've got one software, you get a couple of software that you're working through. You've got one set workflow and you don't have to train your staff over and over again on a lot of different things. You don't have to go searching to say, oh, this client does this. What's the best software? I mean, software is hard. Figuring out
Yes.
software for different clients is a lot of work.
I agree. It's funny when accountants talk about agnostic bookkeeping software. Oh well, it doesn't matter what software they are. I'm doing the year end. Well, it kind of does. It's because same with your tax programs. You don't work on three different tax programs
No,
when you're an accountant. You get to learn one very well. So if you live in the software, you have to pick the software, and then once they pick the software, the customers have to conform, or you're not going to do a
yeah.
good job. Basically, I agree with that analogy. That makes perfect sense. So let's talk a little bit about technology because it's the 900-pound gorilla or the elephant in the room, and particularly now. I think before we started, you were talking about technology when cloud was the big thing, and right now AI is the big thing,
It is.
and it's transforming. the professional services, particularly, but even our services, the accounting services, is having a huge impact. How's it impacting your area of expertise?
It's funny. We are actually, this is the first week because we had requests from the folks in our law lab, that we wanted to have AI conversation once a month.
Right,
So we have put it on the calendar, and I think when it comes to implementing it, at this point, I've tried. There's some software that has it in it, like we use Ignition for our
right,
contracts, and it does a great job. Anything where there's a lot of words, it's pretty good. Uh, when it comes
yeah,
to adding and subtracting, not that good. I just don't. I
yeah,
think I'm to the point where I don't trust it. I remember not trusting the cloud too, so I have to
yes,
remember that, and it's going to be very quick. But you've got different types of AI out there, and I think if you don't stay on top of what's happening in the industry, which is all another job for us, if we don't stay on top of what's out there, we don't want to be doing manual tasks that could be accomplished with AI. And I
correct,
think
yeah,
that if you start to look at what's available, you're going to be able to test it out. We're really in early stages. AI has been around for like 3 years. I don't think
yes,
it's not been around a long time. And
yes,
it's changing. I mean, you hear about the new one out in China, and then it's like, oh, it's not that great, or and people are testing it, but it's free, and so there's a lot of people hopping onto it. And then you've got cloud, you've got is it cloud? I think it's how you say it. Perplexity. I really love Perplexity. I use it a lot for blog post ideas for the law lab. I use it a lot for just different things. We were asked to do some speaking engagements. What's some great topic choices? Or with a blog post, I can write a blog post while I'm walking to the gym. I'll dictate it into
oh
a
wow,
Word doc, some
cool,
idea that came up, and then I'll take it and I'll dump it into the website and say, hey, fix this in a better order, because my brain order is not necessarily a good order to tell a story, because it's like, oh, this came in. I've got that squirrel brain, so
yeah,
it'll
yeah,
rewrite it for me in a better way. And you still have to tweak it. It's not plug
sure,
and play, but I'll say, what's some good SEO? What's a good SEO title for this? And it will give me a selection. I'll say, give me 5 choices. And then, what are great tags out of this article that you just corrected for me? And I think sometimes those are the things that saves me. I timed it one time because somebody said, how long does it take you to do the blog post, do the video, do this, then? I'm like, it was 6 hours to do one. And
that
that's
makes
cut down to probably, well, I do have my assistant helping now with the making sure that the words are on it and everything, the subtitles. I think it's
right.
down to, like, for me, maybe an hour and a half now, from 6 to an hour and a half. That's huge.
That's
So
that's that's less than a
I
third. That's
think we're at the
fantastic.
very, very beginning of it. And I think we're going to see so much more. You just watch what Intuit is doing, and you watch what other software, where they've got a lot of money invested in it. I think the best thing we can do is arm ourselves with knowledge, because I'll tell you, Louis, if you think about when we were back doing all the manual work back in the
Ah, yeah,
90s, really long time ago, we typed everything in. You think about where we came from there to where we are today. It just happens, right? And you don't really think about it. And in fact, when I wrote my book back there, part of it was going back in time, and I went all the way back to like high school and an accounting class. And when you think about the paymaster to write a check and then print the check into remember we used to have to do that instead of, you had the imprint machine. And you think about that, and then you think about today, if somebody told that Lynda back then that my clients are going to come to me and say, what software should I use in my industry? I would be
yeah,
like, they're not going to ask me that question, but they do. We
that's
are now
right.
known as the tech forward people, which is, I think, is amazing. I love that.
You brought back some really painful memories, like the when you paid for a credit card, it was that machine.
Oh, yes.
My first laptop weighed about 20 pounds,
Or your
and
monitor was like this
and it had a screen like
wide.
this big, and yeah, I just you brought back some memories that I'd like to forget. So absolutely, but you're absolutely right. I think when people talk about accountants and bookkeepers, we're no longer focused on the information. It's how the information is processed, even the software and how it's delivered. I mean, software companies are coming to us and go, how do we make a better
Yes.
product? I mean, you know, you're absolutely right. We are now fixing. Like, I mean, when do you remember ever before when you had to reconcile a balance sheet or a trial balance, you were just focusing on the numbers. Now you have to focus on the software to find out what the glitches are in the software and
I
how it did the calculations. Like it's a completely different total system now compared to before. But the amount of production that we can do now is huge.
And
You're
it's,
absolutely right.
yeah, how many fold, right? I mean, we are light years when you think about, oh God, I think about some of the software. What was it not Lotus? There was a software that was like an Excel program, but it wasn't Excel. And if you didn't click save, it would go away and you couldn't undo the go away. And I remember my heart
Oh,
dropping after doing this long profit and loss by building. And then
oh,
I didn't hit save. It was like Friday and I was like, okay, I'm all done. And it was gone. Like there was
yeah,
no, you sure you don't want to save this? That didn't exist back then. And it was like,
absolutely.
oh, you had to do it all over again. So yeah, those were the hard days for sure.
Yeah, we are definitely dating ourselves, Linda. A lot of people listening to us don't even know what we're talking about, but I can tell you, absolutely the technology. So one of the things that I'm hearing from you is AI is here to stay. It will rapidly change your way of producing because if you're doing this, you're talking about the communication side, which reduced it by 75%. I'm assuming that it's probably going to do the same on the other aspects of maybe not yet, but within a year or two, uh, we have to change the fact that my next question is going to be a billing question. Is if you're reducing the time frame because now you're not taking the same amount of time, which is great because now you can do more of what you've indicated, becoming more of an expert. How does that impact your billing? What are you doing to make sure that your billing doesn't actually go down but goes up? Is the
Yeah, that
best
was
way.
actually that was one of my things I thought about as we started to move into the future. And
Right.
no, it does not go down. But we end up doing more. We do more with the client, and I know that. And I've played around with this because at some point you get somebody that comes to you as they really want you, but they're a solo, and they like will you take me on? I'm a solo, and when I look at it that way, and then they want to strip half of what we do down to make it like a $200 a month price. No, right on the website it says what our pricing starts at, and when
That's it.
we
Yeah.
bundle practice, so we don't give them pick and choose like a menu. This is what you get. You have compensation plan. You're going to get the compensation piece in there. You're going to get all of those. You're going to get a lot more for your money involved with all the
Right.
pieces together. And yet maybe it might be more affordable if we were doing all that we do now. What we were doing in the past, maybe it would have taken us a full time person, which it doesn't anymore. But I think you get more for your money when you add the technological piece to it. But
Yeah.
I do think that it's expensive to have good staff because you want to keep them. You want to give them
Yes.
all their every benefit we can, which we do. And I think that happy staff, happy company, and I want to make
That's a
sure
good
that
mantra.
it's
Yes.
so true, right? And we
Yeah.
have an amazing group of ladies that work for us that are they're the tightest knit and they love each other, and that's you can't ask for more. Sarah and I are blessed when it comes to that. So when you have that scenario where everybody helps one another and you've got this way of working, the client is the beneficiary of that. And we always tell a client couple of tips. One of the things we tell our clients is we work in your file weekly. We're going to bill you weekly. So that helps my cash flow,
Oh, for
makes that
sure.
number look smaller. So I'm not saying it's 5,000 a month. It's this much per week. And we're really
Yeah.
clear about it, but
Yeah.
it's true. And I think that might psychologically help sell the service as well. We also, with our clients, we have the touch points. We try to meet with them. I don't want to be that accountant that never talks to my client the whole year except in January or February. We want to be able
Right.
to know what's going on in their life. And we've actually partnered with another firm on some of our bigger clients that does the tax side of things and does it's almost like we give this full experience to the client because now they have the ability to have the tax person, have the tax advisory. And we developed it with another colleague of ours that we work with them and we are in the meetings with them. So we know what's happening more because we work with them closer, and we are able to now we see the other side that we never got to see with coaching or any of the clients that have that financial advice from their tax person. Half the time we're begging, can we have your tax return so we can tie your books to tax?
Right.
Now we're
Right.
part of the process, and it's made a big difference. I'm learning from them, and they're learning from us the questions we ask, or we're able to answer the questions that they're asking a client that the client might say, "Oh, I don't know the answer to that." We're in the meeting, we're able to help with that, and I think that that's been. I think that's been like last year's big thing between we changed our processes internally, but also we did this. And I think that's been such a benefit to our clients, having that one-on-one. And sometimes we will meet with their tax people and talk to them offline without the client. And sometimes most of the time the client is in the meeting, but we try to strategize and help the client achieve their goals. We're in the meetings talking about their goals, and we're talking about their future. And if they're, in their middle life, their 40s or 50s, we're talking about what's their legacy going to be. And do you have key person insurance? And, all the things that could get missed that aren't really part of what an accounting firm or a bookkeeping firm does. But when you layer all those pieces together and have one source, it's really powerful.
Well, Lynda, you just put a game changer in this in our interview, because what I heard was collaboration,
Yeah.
which is not normal. I'm going to tell everybody, all the audience, collaboration between accountants, lawyers, and bookkeepers for the same customer in the same room, even though they bill the customer directly, is not normal. But I've seen it also with some of the people that I tutor and mentor. When they do that, the external accountant and the bookkeeper, or like you, the tax expert and the accountant, when they get together and they collaborate, the level of service that the customer gets is exponential.
Yeah.
It really is. And if I could tell everybody, do what Lynda's doing, collaborate with the specialties that are out there, get the investment accountant who's dealing with their personal finance, get him on a meeting, get the tax expert or the one that's doing the year-end tax, connect with them, even if it's one or two of the meetings that you do.
It's in our
Is
contract that
fantastic.
we talk to them. So yeah.
That's amazing. I think that's a great way to end this episode. The game changer for me is the collaboration, Lynda, and I commend you for, because that's a that's a leading edge thing, and it's not AI, guys. It's literally very basic, but at the end of the day, it's fantastic. So, Lynda, if they want to get a hold of you, if they want to talk more about, because I know you have some programs out there. You also, by the way, I've looked at your blog postings. You have a ton of blogs, and I recommend anybody to just go through them. There are so many, and they're nice and short, 5, 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes. I love the fact that they're and you have also a written document if you don't want to listen to it. So please check out her blogs. But other than that, how can they get a hold of you, Lynda?
I'm really easy to find because I think I'm the only Lynda Artesani. So you'll find
Fair
me
enough.
Facebook, Instagram, X. I'm on all of those. But really, if you look up the Accountants Law Lab, if you're an accounting professional that wants to get involved in meeting in a mastermind group, that's the easiest way to find us. Listen to our
Fantastic.
podcast too. We have a great podcast like you guys do, and just have if you just want to listen and learn, and there are tons of free resources on all of the
Yes.
websites. That if you're just starting out and you're not sure, I give a lot of tips just when you're just starting out, even in there. So I want people to learn from what I learned and not have to go through the process of it. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Lynda. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Lynda, once again, thank you for joining us today. And to you, our valued viewers, a huge thank you for tuning into this episode. If you haven't already done so, please kindly subscribe to our channel. In addition, we always love your feedback and comments below. Until next time, stay hydrated, always be curious, and above all, stay well.